Number one tip, be gracious to your agent and give them all the up-to-date CV, skills, ammunition to get you in the room. You do have to prioritize and go, this is what I'm going for at the time. This is what I'm putting all my resources into. The work that you've done, the experience you've had, how you are doing your work. I'm judging you on that. I'm not judging you on how long of an email you can write.
Hello, Danny from Actors Coaching International in the US.
Hello, Daniel from Actors Coaching International in the UK.
So, Danny, what classes does ACI provide?
I'm so pleased you asked that, Daniel. We provide weekly core acting classes.
Online and in person.
We run self-tape classes.
Casting director workshops.
Audition-ready classes.
Industry professional workshops with award-winning directors.
Script analysis sessions.
Intensive 2-day acting workshops.
Why not go to actorscoachinginternational.com to find out more?
Mildred, you're in the room with us today. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you for this opportunity. Lovely to meet you in the flesh both. I know we've been internet buddies for a while, Twitter buddies.
Absolutely.
So it's great to see you even virtually in person.
Yeah, it's great to have this conversation. It's been coming for quite a while. Christian, how are you before we crack on? We always got to check in with you, all right?
Yes, I'm very, very well, thank you. The sun's out, got my Ribena, so we're all good.
Wow, that's a hell of a Saturday night, isn't it, for you? That really is. But yeah, it's awesome to get you on, Mildred, and chat to you. As you say, we've sort of had a few DMs in the past, sharing each other's tweets, and we have quite a lot of common ground. So it's great to have the opportunity to have a long-form conversation and cover some really important topics, which is great. But first of all, we ask all of our guests this question, and it's always a doozy. Answers are always varied. How do actors get in the room?
Number one tip, be gracious to your agent and give them all the up-to-date CV, skills, ammunition to get you in the room. I always pitch harder for the clients that I love, and I know if I get them a meeting, they're going to smash the heck out of that tape or that meeting, and they're ready to go.
That's really interesting that you're super conscious of that as well. And is it been a more important thing in recent times? Because at the time of recording, sort of a few weeks ago, I think it was, there's something happened from the casting director's side of Spotlight, making it easier to connect with actors based on certain, skills on Spotlight and filtered information. Is that correct, or am I mishearing that?
I don't have a casting director account, so I have no idea how they see it, but I know that casting directors definitely have a look before they bring people in. And if you've just done something recently and you've done a recent project and I've said, well, so-and-so just wrapped on this, which is relevant to the project they're casting, and it's not on your CV, you're just shooting yourself in the foot because they're going, huh? What's she saying? Is that correct? And, you just want to take out that margin of error because there are so many submissions for each job nowadays. It's become so competitive. So you just want to be as good as you can, have everything there ready for people to pick you because they really do want to pick you. They're looking for opportunities to pick you. They're not looking for opportunities not to pick you.
That's really interesting. I had a friend that was on Hollyoaks some years ago, and he told me that when he left, he got a job on quite a big show on Netflix. Can't remember what the name was, and it was only a couple of lines. But because he put it instantly on his Spotlight CV, he was getting called in for all these big things because they're like, you're filming this massive show. They didn't know it was only one line, but because he had that on there, he was getting called in for everything. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, keep yourself relevant. And if you have something relevant to say, let people know about. Don't wait for them to dig. Make it easy for people to get you in the room.
That's what we all want. So me and Matt are always really interested to hear about the start of our guest careers. What brought you to working in this industry?
Well, I've always loved the entertainment industry. The power that books, movies, and television and theater have to change beliefs and to change the way people feel and just be a talking point in everyday households, I think has always really drawn me because people always want to talk about what's happening in arts and entertainment. I just feel like there's a real power there that I've always been like, this is amazing. How do you have a conversation with everybody by being involved in this space? One of my previous careers was as a competitive ballroom dancer. So my husband and I represented England in 7 world in European championships. And we trained at this elite dance school in Bologna in Italy with Joanne Clifton, who's my first client. And it was our coach, Davide Cacciari. You know, we were having one of those conversations one day. It's very similar to conversations that actors have with their agent. You know, why am I not booking anything? You know, Davide, why am I not getting to the next round? Like, am I ever going to be world champion? Am I ever going to be in the world final? And he was like, no, you may not. You may not become world champion, but neither will 99% of us. And he was like, but you know what? You have the ability and the strengths and the talent to be a world champion manager of talent. And I think that was his polite way of saying you're really bossy. And but he spotted that. And it's so funny because even then, like at the world championships and stuff, I was always the one being like, oh my God, so we have to do the, like, you know, that we always had the countries like parading and everything. Why is everyone not in line? This is what we need to do. We need to do this. And then, you know, trying to figure it out for the club and for everybody. And so that's kind of the first time I had the idea that I could do something like that.
It's really interesting that then took you presumably over a course of more time to end up where you are today. But sometimes you said it's because you think, you know, saying that you're bossy, but I think sometimes coaches or teachers of people do see glimmers of going, you know what, they are really good at this, but I wonder, I think there's this, and you see it when you teach young actors, young performers, where I go, I know they're a really good actor for their age, but I think the way they talk, the way they behave, the way that they move, they're going to be a playwright or a director, you know, if things go to plan. That's really awesome. When we asked you if you'd be interested to come on the podcast, you said, sounds great, love to do some myth busting in this industry. And we're going to go to that towards the later end of the podcast as well. But for now, let's ask your personal opinion on this. Is there anything that comes to mind that you want to shut down once and for all in this industry as a myth?
There is just so much stuff out there, both of you guys know as well. And anytime you hear something, always check it out. Always do your due diligence. Always ask questions of people who are actual experts and be skeptical. Be critical of things that you are told. I think one of my favorite ones that still survives to this day is the one where people go, well, you have to be everything to everyone. You have to be right for everything. And I'm like, no, you really don't. And I represent lots of people who are multi-talented. They work in multiple platforms and multiple mediums. And even then, when you're that sort of person, you have to prioritize. You can't do so many things at once. That's just not how the human brain works. You do have to prioritize and go, this is what I'm going for at the time. This is what I'm putting all my resources into. Otherwise, what you're doing is you're going, I'm dividing the resources I have into all these different pots, and you're not making the best of what you have. And it's exactly the same when you start worrying about going into an audition. Oh, I wonder what they want. Maybe I'll just try to be a little bit of everything, or doing a tape. I'll just like try to make it like, you know, kind of neutral so no one will have a problem with it. But again, back to that thing, how do you get in the room? How do you get chosen? You have to prioritize. You have to make strong choices. And to do that, you can't be everything all the time. You can't be everything to everyone. And that is totally fine.
Before Christian gets on to the next question, I think that goes back to what I say to a lot of people that I work with that happen to be quite a lot of the time early career artists that are maybe looking for their first agent or are looking for some of their first roles, is I tell them to double down on their strengths. And sometimes that's misconceived as embracing typecasting and putting a negative spin on it. And it's like, no, you need to show them what you are really freaking good at, because very few people, until they get sort of a name or some credits under their belt, actually have the opportunity to branch out. And that, you know, you should go, this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm going to push out there. And that's how you get people's attention, or at least that's what it seems to work for when I work with some people. But I think that links quite nicely to Christian's next question, which we'll be looking at rep request, isn't it, Christian?
Yeah, I mean, but I was going to briefly touch upon, and it's something else Mildred mentioned that was really important, that I've got so many actor friends that still to this day, they'll do a tape and they'll say to me, oh, I think I've got that one, or I think that was amazing. Do you think I'll get it? And it's like, you just need to forget that shit. And you've done your best job. and now just forget about it, and you just bring everything that you can to the table and stop worrying about, do they want this or that and that? Just do your best work. And that's what you touched upon there, Mildred. And I think that's really, really key for people to really hear and take that in.
Well, I mean, I always have that thing where I'm like, you guys see me on Twitter going, find your superpower. And people always think, oh, yeah, that's a really great phrase. But people are drawn to things done really well and having an expertise. And I'm a big, big fan of leaning into your strengths and just honing the thing you are really good at that you can do better than anybody else. That's how you're going to get in the room. That's how you're going to book those jobs. And like you say, once you've done it, you've done everything you can. Close the book.
Exactly. And often we had Anthony Mendel, the acting coach, on our podcast last season, and he touched upon your superpower really being you, your individual, what you bring to the table, what your ideas are on that script. And that's kind of your superpower in his opinion.
Quite right. He's one of the greatest acting coaches.
Love him, love him. So I'll move on to the next question, just about rep requests. So every time an agent comes on our podcast, we have to ask certain topics. So representation requests, what are the biggest do's and don'ts when writing emails?
It's funny. My friend and colleague, Sam Halton, we just did this whole spotlight seminar on this topic. And we were like, okay, 2 biggest tips. 1, be normal. Don't talk to someone as if you have they are not another human being. And 2, be brief and make sure that they have everything they need to assess you. So a lot of times we get really, really super long emails with everything in it, their life story, but not a spotlight link, no headshots, no show reel. So for me, I'm just like, make sure the spotlight link is in there. I actually don't mind if the email's really brief and I am looking for representation. Here's my spotlight link. Here's my show reel. If you don't have a show reel, here's some recent self-tapes I've done. And I'm like, great. That's all I need to know. Because again, what we were talking about before, those things speak for themselves. What the work that you've done, the experience you've had, how you are doing your work. I'm judging you on that. I'm not judging you on how long of an email you can write.
Absolutely. It's quite interesting because I think a lot of people go into rep request emails trying to get signed off the email, whereas what you want is to get the meeting, because no actor on the face of planet Earth gets signed without a meeting. Even the biggest actors in the world, the new agent that's being approached would still want to probably have coffee with them to see whether or not that's Pandora's box they want to open up, depending on whichever famous actor it might be. So just as you say, present the information, be polite, and then get the fuck out of there. And if they're interested, they are. If they're not, then whatever. But I totally agree with you. Sometimes you see emails that are, if you have to scroll down to get to the end of it, right? It's there's too much going on.
Yeah. Like it's just keep it short, keep it sweet. And yeah, like you say, and if someone is signing you off the back of an email, I would look at that company really hard and go, why?
Yeah, you just want to meet with people, right? And you can save some of the things that are written in emails that they're presuming that people are going to see something and make a judgment, and then they're writing about what they think that person's then they're having a conversation with an email that hasn't even happened, and to wait for the actual meeting to have that conversation. We sort of mentioned it at the start of the podcast, you spoke about having up-to-date CVs and all that, but can we dive into that a little bit more? So what can actors do to make the best spotlight CV and showreel or whatever additional material there is for their agents to use when they're submitting them for work or introducing them to a new casting office?
So first of all, every agent is different. So make sure, number 1, check in with your agent about what their formatting preferences are and what they would like to see. So that is rule number 1 that trumps everything else. Check in and speak to your agent about how they like it to look. In general, things that I've seen where I personally ask clients to change, make sure there's dates on all the credits, even if it's just the year. I think Spotlight only does year anyway, but just put the year that the project is going out or the year that you did it for theater. A lot of times people go, well, I just don't put the date on. I'm like, well, that just makes it harder for people to place which show you were in or which version. Was it the original feature film? Was it the revival? We don't know because there's no date on it. And then after you've agreed the format with your agent, take the initiative. When you have new credits, put them up in the format that you've agreed. Don't wait for them to chase you. Once a TV show you've been on is out, You chase up the footage. Don't wait for them to chase you, because the sooner you have evidence of the new work that you've done on your Spotlight CV, the sooner you'll be seen for new things. I mean, even if, like, sometimes casting directors, because they can search the CVs and stuff. So if you have your newest credits on there and a show reel for them to watch with your newest footage, that will take you so much further.
Are you going to ask the next one, Christian? You look ready to go in there, and I was ready to just start talking again, but people are probably going to be sick of my voice. But I was like, we need to get the company name right on this question, remember? Because I fluffed up when I sent Mildred the question.
That's what I was focused on. That's what I was focused on.
We're like, oh God, we've got to get the name right. Got to get the name right.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about how do you and the rest of the team at United Agents go about maintaining your position as one of the leading agencies in the world? I mean, actors and other industry professionals are understandably more focused on staying afloat or getting to the top. But we'd love to know a little bit about what it's like trying to stay there.
Well, the thing I love most about United Agents and my colleagues there is that everyone is so different from each other, but yet at the top of their game. And, we have experts in everything from, we have people who do unscripted to screenwriting to directors to comedy to serious drama actors to technicians. But that said, I think it's still important to acknowledge that everyone struggles, even at the top. And I remember when the pandemic first happened, all of us, there was not a moment where we were like, oh we're going to be fine. We're totally going to be fine. I think everyone had a panic. Everyone was like, oh God, how are we going to get through this? How are we going to innovate? Is this going to be forever? I think that's the question we were all asking. I think coming out of it, it disproportionately affects different types of agents, those with more like live projects in the theater or like live comedy and stuff will be still more disproportionately affected than people with more screen, people who work in television and in feature film. I do think, though, overall, I can answer for me. I always try every day, every week to come in and go, how can I make this service even better for my clients or the people, the buyers I work for in the industry? How professionalism is always my number one priority. And I think the way forward for our industry is as we become more and more professionalized, more money is going to flow in, more support's going to flow in. We're going to become more and more of a business where people can really thrive. I want to know that I'm always delivering the best advice and helping my clients put their best foot forward. So I'm always like reading and staying on top of things and trying to go, okay, well, is there this new area over here? What's happening in gaming? What's happening in digital? The new SVOD deals, how do they affect actors and creatives differently? So I'm always like reading books, connecting with new people in the industry, thinking about ways we can make everything work faster, better, and in a more connected way.
And while we're on the agent side of things, I'd like to ask a sort of follow-up. It's not necessarily directly related to that, but it's something I'm curious about is what advice would you have for newer agencies? Because through the pandemic and coming out of it, quite a lot of agencies couldn't financially continue and they had to close their books, and it was awful to see people that put that so much time and energy in their lives into this business having to shut down. But we do have new agents coming through and new businesses opening and trying to take their first steps into the industry. What advice would you give to a newer acting agency, whether brand new, a few months in, of things to make sure that they're shit hot on or to look at, or mistakes to avoid, to try and get a foothold and cling on in the early days, as it were?
God, I'm not sure I'm qualified to answer this question. Because people who start new agencies now, God, I hat off to you. I am so in awe of you deciding to do that and take that risk. We need you. We do, because we all know that there aren't enough good agents out there. There's not enough representation out there for the people who need it. And I would say, it's like being an agent is hard. It's a difficult job. It's not for the faint-hearted, but You have to focus on the things that you love and you really want to promote and believe in. And it is really hard at the beginning because if you don't have the cash coming in, it's really difficult to go, okay, I'm going to hang on and believe in this. So I would say, if I were to do that, I'd be looking at my portfolio being like, do I have short-term bets as well as medium-term bets as well as long-term bets to take me through this? But gosh, I mean, it is not for the faint-hearted, and hats off to anyone who's trying to enter the industry right now.
Hi, we're selftape.co.uk, but don't forget the hyphen. That's self-tape.co.uk. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's a mouthful worth chewing on. Anyway, as the name suggests, we do self-tapes for actors in London. Maybe you've run out of time, maybe you have kids, perhaps you can't find a reader, or let's face it, you could just be a little bit at setting everything up. Well, that's where we come in. But it's not all we offer, no, we also shoot showreels for actors too. Custom showreel scenes shot from scratch to show casting directors and agents exactly what you can do. Well, that is, if they can be bothered to watch. Any In The Room listeners get 10% off all of our services just by quoting In The Room. So get in touch and visit www.selftape.co.uk. Or don't, it's completely up to you. But whatever you do, don't forget the hyphen, you get it.
So, this next question is going to sound a little bit different for you listeners, and that's due to the fact that when we originally recorded this podcast, what Mildred is about to talk about was not yet released to the public, but now we're releasing Series 3 and all this information is out there. We really wanted to put this question and Mildred's answer right back into the podcast. So I'll ask the question and you'll hear Mildred's answer, and then we'll get right back to where we were at the day of recording. So enjoy. Being an agent at a top agency, a position of power, how have you sought to champion and elevate underrepresented voices in the industry? And we'd love to hear more about the Diverse Squad.
I'm very fortunate to be a founding member of the PMA Racial Diversity Working Group, aka the Diverse Squad. We are a group of 7 women of color agents who got together on the topic of the treatment of non-white actors versus their white counterparts in 2020. In 2021, we commissioned a survey alongside the Sir Lenny Henry Center for Media Diversity. And we surveyed 1,300 non-white actors about their treatment on set, in the audition process. And one of the major findings was that 71% of the respondents reported a lack of provision in hair and makeup departments. So what this meant was that makeup colors for Black and brown skin and suitable hair products for ethnic hair were just not available on set. Non-white actors were also often required to do or organize their own hair and makeup, while their white counterparts had the professional support of a hair and makeup team. So what we ended up doing is we got together with our partners, Spotlight and the global makeup brand MAC Cosmetics, and launched the Inclusive Complexion Edit, a set of products catering to those with darker skin tones that will ensure that all productions have the opportunity to have the right makeup colors for actors regardless of the color of their skin. So discounts will also be offered to professionals purchasing these products, as well as Spotlight actors who can also go to any MAC store and get their unique makeup foundation code that can be inputted into a field and tagged in by their agents. And that way, no one has to go into a job unprepared or uninformed. So we're asking everyone in the industry, from actors to agents to casting directors and producers, to proactively support us on this by asking for and providing the foundation code or makeup reference just at the point of booking, when all of the information is usually sent to the producer for the casting advice notice. You would also send your makeup foundation code. Then if production has this information, they will be able to better cater to the actor on set. So that's our newest initiative. I hope all of your listeners will now go and get their unique makeup code and take advantage of the discount. This is our next step in forwarding race equality, and we're very, very proud of it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it.
And you don't just represent actors. On your books, you have directors, casting directors, choreographers, presenters, writers, composers, and probably more that we missed, or I probably mistyped something again. What challenges do you face when dealing with so many different aspects of the industry from so many different sides? And is there an upside when it comes to potential collaboration amongst your client list?
I think my path has led me here is that I've been very lucky in my career at United, working my way up from assistant level to have worked in every single department at United and done deals in every single area, whether that's like books to unscripted to like technicians, brands, digital, film, TV, theater, and actors. Part of that is I am just curious and interested in all aspects of our industry. And I believe very much in this whole ecosystem thing. And I am also interested in the different avenues that my clients can take. And I'm really led by the individual client. I sign people based on their ambition, their commitment to their vision, and their ability to go, no, this is the ride we're going on. And I'll be like, yes, I'm interested in joining you on that ride and that experience. I think what all my clients do have in common is their drive and their ability to follow through. And the people on my list who work well have this incredible focus and an ability to communicate effectively with me about what they want and what they plan to do to get there. And then I can then add with and contribute with, well, okay, so these are the practical steps to achieve what you want. And we should have a look at this and look at this other thing. But this is how we have a real structured way of moving forward. I don't work well, particularly with people who don't know what they want and if they expect me to create a career for them, because I feel like every successful career requires passion and commitment from the principal person who is doing that career. And if you don't have that passion, that drive, I can give you the best advice in the world, and that's not going to help you. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot of people to know and a lot of diverse groups of people, but I really thrive on that. I like connecting with all sorts of different people in the industry and finding out what's going on from different points of view. My clients sometimes do collaborate. I don't make them, but
Do this.
you must play together. No, I don't really do that. I often, the morning after my annual Christmas drinks, I definitely do get a few calls or emails being like, could you connect me with this person? We really hit it off. And I'm like, fantastic. Go off, go have coffee.
Yeah.
You come back to me later. You guys want to do something? Let's figure out how to make that happen.
I was just playing a little hangover thing there. I was about to be like, can you leave me alone? It's the morning after the Christmas drinks. Piss off. Do your own thing for a bit. I had a little follow-up to that before I finally let Christian speak again. It's one of those episodes, I'm afraid, today, where what's really interesting is the way that you're describing your relationship with your clients is very much that while it is obviously equal parts and you have stuff that you do and you have stuff that they do, that you're a lot of the time not client-led. I'm not sure if I'm phrasing this correctly, that you're very dependent on your clients knowing what they want and how they're going to get there, and that you support/direct that. Whereas I think a lot of the time the perception with agents from some of these much bigger offices is that they have ridiculously talented clients that just sit there on the sofa and will get 5 opportunities a week, aren't doing anything, and it's the agents giving them that, and that there isn't that much back and forth. But from what you're saying, at least from your perspective, it's a lot more the other way-ish, in the sense of you need to know that they have a plan and you assist in that. Is that correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the sitting on the couch and waiting for the phone to ring thing is like, that is a Hollywood bygone fantasy from like, it's like things you see in movies that don't actually happen, or like the Instagram versus reality like meme.
Yeah.
It's like something like that. I think more and more with how much our industry has changed, it is very, very driven by the client and what they want, because you cannot force people down roads they don't want to go on. Otherwise, it's really painful for everyone. I think it is very much, okay, what do you want to do? Is this achievable? And then with my industry experience and my ability to do the due diligence to go, okay, well, let me look into this. Let me talk to some people. Let's figure out how possible this is, what's achievable. And it's not that everything a client wants sometimes happens and we go after it. It is very much a dialogue and a discussion, because a lot of times clients are going, I have this idea, but I don't know. I don't know if it's a good one. And here is the research I've done, and this is why I think it's a good idea. And I'm like, okay, great. Let me look into this. This is what I know now. These are the things that I need to find out. Let's continue to have a dialogue on this and figure out whether or not it's something we should pursue. This is a conversation that happens very commonly, whether it be one of my clients going, listen, I've done a lot of theater. I want to do more screen work. That's a very common one. And then I do have conversations sometimes in rep requests where they're just like, but I want you to get me on in the movies. And I'm just like, okay, so what sort of films do you like? What sort of television programs do you see yourself being in? And then they go, well, I don't know. You tell me. And I'm just like, okay. That, and then it becomes much harder work. Like, I've watched a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of stuff. There are so many series I watch for like one episode of. I have a lot of awareness of like what's going on. But if you can't tell me what you have a passion for, it's much harder for me to help you, because also without passion, there's no commitment. So even if I say to you, okay, I think you should play like this sort of character, if that's not something that you innately feel that you can do and you want to pursue and build the skills for, me saying that isn't going to make a hint of difference to you.
Do you find there's often a disconnect sometimes, though, between the stuff that actors love to watch and the stuff they'd actually be good to act in? Because I love my action films, but there ain't no way I'm an action lead. I could get punched in the face by one, but I don't think I'm going to be the action lead. Does that ever happen where you get actors that like, I'm really passionate about this, I love this, but you're like, oh, but I'm not sure you'd get cast in a project like this? Or is that just quite black and white in something that's a bit more open?
You are absolutely right. There are sometimes disconnects like that. But then the question is, how are you going to bridge that disconnect?
I'm going to go to the gym, Mildred. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to the gym. I'm going to do some weights.
The other question I have is that best served with the strengths that you naturally have as well? And back to that whole strengths conversation. Yes, you can compete in a race. Like if you're a long distance runner, yes, I'm sure you could do a sprint race, but are you best served by that? Is that the way that you can be the best that you can be? Or like my coach Davide said to me, yes, you can continue trying to be a dancer, but is that where you are going to be the best at your game and what you can offer to this community? And I think those are the conversations that need to be had when you're deciding on a path. Nothing in this industry is an agent waves a magic wand and boom, you're there. That never happens. It's these difficult conversations and thinking that has to happen for these seeming miracles to happen.
I love all this advice. It's absolute gold. I was going to ask, can you speak about the ways in which your identity as an Asian American woman has shaped your experiences in the industry and how you've sort of navigated any obstacles or biases that you've encountered as a result of your background?
I think being an Asian American has, in an elder millennial, showing my age, that being in that generation has meant the message to me has always been fit in, don't poke your head up, just fit in, hide. I think when COVID and BLM happened, I think this led us all to re-examine our biases, re-examine how we see the world. For me, that was the moment where I realized it was really important, actually, for me to step forward and claim my racial identity and just go, yes, I am here. I can do something about that and step forward in a way that I never had before. And actually thinking about it, there are so few East Asian Chinese agents, East Asian agents, when I go to events and stuff, it's not something I see very often. I mean, at the beginning of my career, I was definitely on the receiving end of lots of assumptions like, oh, you must work in translation rights, or are you someone's secretary or someone's wife? And I mean, it's funny, these things, when you say them now, but it's just like, it's maybe some preconceived biases. And I think that's where the representation conversation is important, because to normalize having a diverse group of people doing these jobs means that there are fewer assumptions about what people can be. And I mean, even now, I get so many emails where people are like, you're East Asian or you're Chinese. You must be interested in East Asians and East Asian stories. And I'm just like, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Like I could be, but I'm interested in a lot of things that are wider than that.
Has your experience as a former world championship competitive ballroom dancer had any influence on your approach to talent representation?
Yes, at once, totally, and everything, and also nothing, like simultaneously. So from the idea of being an agent in the first place, coming from my coach, Davide, my approach is really informed by peak performance team sports. It really is. How do you, when you think about in sports, how do you run faster? How do you make that ball go further? In ballroom dancing, we always talked about, how do you make, as a couple, make you travel faster? How do you create speed and movement and light and shade? But it's about, for me, how you achieve your highest potential. And this will look different for everyone. And that is why my approach is so individual to every client, and my client list is so diverse. But every client has that one thing in common. They want to be the best. They want to achieve the best of their potential. They aren't afraid to work hard and experience difficult things to get there. And then also nothing, because this is a different industry and a different place. And this is the thing, like, lots of people talk to me about like crossover talent or transformation, because that is one of the things that they see me doing. And they're like, you're the crossover agent, or you're the transformation agent, and I want you to transform my career. I'm like, no, you transform your career. You do it. And how you transform your career and how you are the architect of your career has almost nothing to do with my past, my biases, my experience, because it's about what your vision is, how much you're willing to sacrifice to get there. And then, if I can guide you and give you advice and give you the information to make that happen, then amazing. But that has to come from you. That has to come from you.
I think that chasing of high performance is it, isn't it? Whatever it looks like in your world, that's what the goal is always. And the amount of things you can take that aren't seemingly directly related. And, when I teach young performers, I take a lot of things, because I'm a massive sports person, and I teach young actors as well. And I talk to them about things like marginal gains. They're like, we just want to act, Matt. Can you leave us alone, please? You start talking about marginal gains and things. But it is important, isn't it? It all comes into play.
I think being elite in any industry comes down to very similar things. And it's funny when you talk to people who are elite and expert at what they do. They all know a lot about prioritizing. They know about, like you say, marginal gains. They know about taking the big risk, making that strategic decision that changed the course of their life. And that meant giving something up. That was really hard. And it's all connected. And I love when using ideas from other areas to help inform what we do. I think we're all like stronger together in that way. And if the information is out there, use it.
Absolutely. So now we're going to move on to a slightly different looking last section of our podcast to usual. So instead of our rapid fire section, earlier this recording week, Mildred put out a tweet asking if anyone had some industry myths that they wanted us to discuss or debunk or just generally talk about. And we had some nice responses. So we're going to go through sort of 4 of them, and we're just going to see where the conversation takes us. Do you have these loaded up in front of you, Christian? I did send them to you. I don't.
do. I have them now, yeah.
Awesome. So we'll apologize in advance for getting usernames wrong, surnames wrong, maybe misinterpreting your question. It's Twitter, but we're only human, and I'm a complete grammar nerd, and sometimes it stresses me out when I can't see a full stop when there should be a full stop, and it hurts me. So hopefully we'll just have a good conversation and see what opens up. So the first one, and again, I'm going to butcher the username right away. I want to say Asinonyx as the username. I'm going to go for that, but I just said, we'll go with that. Anyway, so this is the first one, Mildred. Please debunk the myth that foreign actors can only play foreign roles with foreign accents. That is not a reality, but too many people still seem to believe it.
Yeah, that's a hard no for me because we're such a global industry right now. I don't think there's a room anymore for people only to be other, and if you are foreign, therefore you must speak in a certain accent or play a certain character. One of the things I aspire to in my list is to have a truly global talent list, people from all different countries, nationalities, cultures. Yeah, one of the projects, I am going to a very exciting premiere actually on Monday in Amsterdam for a feature film called Black Lotus, starring one of my clients, Ronali Shimon, who's Israeli. And they have an international all-star cast from all sorts of different countries and nationalities. It's an English-speaking film. And yeah, people have different accents, different ways of speaking, but it's not about that. It's a thriller. It's about the story. And I think more and more we're going to see this. And, you always see the change first in fantasy things, like with when Black Panther came out, and it's easier to see this in a fantasy world. But I do think that is trickling to films and TV everywhere, and especially with the streamers now commissioning work from all different countries because their subscriber bases are truly international. So people do want to see people like them and also people different from them so they can experience life in a different way, in a different culture. I think people find that fascinating.
Absolutely. Matt, you're going to have to help me out with this username here.
I don't know if it's Uatu. It's spelled Uatu.
Yeah.
But that's about as far as I'm going to go. So you asked the question after making me butcher the username. So thanks for that. Off you go.
I'd rather embarrass you than me, but
yeah, well, it's easy enough for me, innit? Anyway, carry on.
So Mildred, big boy agency versus boutique agency. Do you think the pressure is greater and the shelf life shorter in the former?
I think it also depends on the individual agent. Are they building their list? Do they have quite a stable list? I wouldn't make any assumptions about anything or anyone. I think a good rule of thumb, though, is that your agent and you have to run a profitable business. So how you do that is a really important thing to decide. There are agencies out there who are non-exclusive, so you can sign with multiple agencies at the same time. But then the other end of that is if you're non-exclusive, then they're going to have more clients, so they're going to have less time for you. Mm-hmm. And then you have exclusive agencies. Our working model is an exclusive representation model, and in that case, then together, we're going to have to figure out a way that this makes sense as a business. So, whether that is supplementing, if you're an actor, supplementing in terms of commercials and voiceover and brand deals and digital, or going, okay, we're going to go for a few really big projects, or we know you can make money in theater, but you want to branch out. So we're going to try and do, like, for every one screen project, then you're going to do 2 theater projects, or however you go about that. But whatever you make, your agent makes so much less, but you have to be able to keep them afloat, whether they are at a big agency or they are at a small agency, because at the end of the day, it does reflect on them and how they're going to be able to keep you on the list.
Yeah, I think that's such an interesting thing for actors to know. And I don't know if you can answer this but the question I was going to move on to was, I'm assuming all agencies and agents get given targets by the business because ultimately you are there to make money. Is that the reality of it?
Yeah. I think even if you run your own agency, you have to make a profit. Otherwise, there's no point in you being there. So at larger agency, yes, we have targets that we are meant to achieve. And we also we look at our numbers every year and every quarter and go, how did I do? And it's something that I do for myself as well. Like Charlotte and I in our office, it's something that on a weekly basis, we have a process where we turn to each other and we go, we made this much in commission this week. Well done, and okay, we're going to try that. We have this much outstanding. Let's try to bring it in next week. And so I think it's good to be aware of that. And you're not just with the commission that you bring your agent, you're paying for their time, but it's also like the office, their IT. And if there's an assistant who's helping you with those meetings and those self-tapes, that has to be taken into account as well. Or, sometimes we work in teams. If you have another agent as well on the team, you have to be able to cover them as well. So I think it's an important thing to think about. And I think a lot of times when actors and creatives don't think about this, there's a bit of a disconnect. And
take it personally.
Yeah.
Well, on to the next sort of Mythbuster style question. So this is from Ian Donnelly. Now, this could either be typed with an R or an aunt. We weren't sure which one to go with. So I'm just going to put that on Mildred and do both. So do older actors have any chance of signing with a bigger agent, even if they are experienced or even if they aren't experienced? It was one of the two.
I think that it's less about age as your experience and what you bring to the table. I think it is all about like what an agent's portfolio looks like. Do they need someone of your description and your skill set? I've just gone through a period actually where I've only signed people over 40. And there were a few interesting people that happened to walk through my door, and they had some very interesting CVs and skill sets. And we had a great conversation about where they were going next. And I was like, this sounds exciting. I'm on board. Let's do this. So yeah, I think that is definitely a myth that we can safely debunk, because I am an agent at a big agency and I have signed a few actors over 40 in the last month.
Done. But Ian, you missed out, fella. Unless Ian was one of those, we're like, oh man, should have just gone for it, fella. Should have just sent the email. Do you want to wrap us up, Christian? Do you want to ask the last one?
Absolutely. So from Astrid Koofman, sorry, apologies in advance. How about the good old, if you're a foreigner, you need a perfect RP, standard English accent. Otherwise, you won't book any work in the UK industry. What's your take on that?
Oh my God. I feel like currently there's such room for diverse accents, and there actually is a greater awareness that productions want to include a diversity of accents in their productions. And I would say, as with any actor, you are limited if you can only do one accent, whether that be RP or a Northern accent or a London accent or a French accent. If you can only do one accent, you are going to be limited to roles that require that accent. So I would say to any actor that you need to have a range of accents that you are able to do. Because also at the end of the day, it's not about the accent. It's about the storytelling and the characters you're able to play. And there are also just an amazing selection of like support and accent and dialect coaches out there who can help you cultivate and develop a range of accents that you can bring to the table.
I think that's a lovely point to end on. We've covered so many different topics. It's been a wonderful discussion, an uplifting discussion as well. And I've learned a lot. I'm sure Christian's learned a lot as well. So thank you so much for joining us in the room today, Mildred. And Have a lovely rest of your evening. It's been great to chat to you.
Thank you.